Yeah, definitely. It also involves preservation of and memory somehow. But just to start briefly, the idea of temporary libraries is about ideally, metaphorically, breaking the walls of library. Well, I see traditional libraries as kind of monumental institutions. Don't get me wrong, extremely useful and absolutely to be supported and preserved. But at the same time, still working in a model, through a model that has been the same since a few centuries, basically, at least a couple ones. With the digitalization of culture, which is can be a quite overwhelming process, especially in the last decade. The role of the library seems to be very questioned. Why I should go and spend some time through physical books when I can possibly access anything through digital devices and interfaces? Actually, if we really think about it, it's absolutely not true that we can access everything. Probably the opposite. We can access a huge amount of culture, but often not the small pieces of culture that we are looking for, that we need somehow. So this paradox led me to think about what kind of role the library still has. And I think it's still a crucial one, for two reasons. One is that it's preserving culture in a stable form and in a physical form. And the second one is that it's mediated not by software processes or interfaces, but by experts, the librarians. So the idea especially was contextualized in the media art field, which even more paradoxically has suffered a lot to preserve its own memory. I mean, a whole production of art with electronic first and then digital means have struggled quite a lot in the end to establish archives that could preserve its own memory. And it's weird because we have used the most advanced technologies over time. So there's also another important part, which is that most of the memory for media art has been preserved by small institutions and by just people, artists, journalists. I personally have my own experience with Nero magazine, which in 2018 will celebrate 25 years of publishing. We have received quite a few thousands of printed media related to media art in general. So the main idea here was, okay, there's another element which is quite important, which is that in traditional libraries, media art is almost absent. I've visited plenty of institutional libraries, even art libraries or university libraries, looking for their media art small section. And most of the time I've been extremely disappointed because it has been either very reduced or mixed up with completely different sections like IT. So you can have an academic collection of essays next to an AutoCAD manual. And of course, it would be very hard then to find it. So from all these different contradictory elements has come the idea to make temporary libraries focused on media art. And the process is absolutely, and it's absolutely focused not on building them up just by myself, but to involve the same community, as the community of media art has contributed to the neural archive that we have. So in this specific case, we started, I proposed, Andres Murvano, to make one temporary library about Latin American media art for two main reasons. One is that especially the Latin American production has been quite overlooked over the years, mainly for language reasons. Spanish and Portuguese are not so extensively spoken in Europe, but also for the distance, Europe and US as well, also for the distance, so how to really know about what is being produced over the years that has not been exhibited or published or translated in different countries. And this was particularly useful into the ISEA context. So we thought, I proposed to Andres, we should do something that would let people know in a very relaxed way during ISEA about Latin American media art production, but it should not just end with ISEA. It should then be archived, and we have the memory part as well. So we started actually more or less 1 year ago. And we started to solicit. I mean, the temporary library works in a very simple way. The methodology is to ask publishers, institutions, and people for donations. So it doesn't want to raise budgets, but just to ask the community to donate extra copies of media art based books, in this case, again in Latin American context, so to ask for donations. Then we make, somebody has called it an installation. I find it quite difficult to call it an installation. For me, it's still a small library. But there should be a public space during the event that should host the library, so people, as here, could just pick up some books and enjoy them, reading them. There's plenty of space here where people can do it. The idea is also to create a small social space where people don't just enjoy the books, but can also start talking about them. So actually starting to exchange knowledge, so creating an active social space. There's also a small catalog that we print, which has the list of all the books which are here, and there's also the list of all the donors. And it's freely, obviously, distributed, and it's meant to connect who has produced and hosted, and also the generosity of people donating them with those who are interested in that particular books. There are two further steps. One, which is extremely important, is that when the event ends, the library is not just dismissed, but it's donated as a special collection to an academic library. In this case, it will be donated to the Universitat de Caldas library, so it will become a special collection there. My ambition is to create a resource that would make the Universitat de Caldas library a small point of reference for media art in Latin America. And this resource will be stable and would be created mostly for free. So it will be the community, basically, creating it through our small curatorial practice, mine and Andres as well. And it's not even ending there, because it's called temporary library for a specific reason. When it will become a special collection, I mean, we donate it to the Universitat de Caldas under one condition, that they should be open to lend the whole special collection to other events if they ask for, negotiating with them the conditions. So it's not that they are compellingly obliged to lend it, because there are expenses. Let's say that there's an event in Brazil, it will be quite expensive to ship a few parcels there. And heavy, and it will be also, there will be questions of, getting all of them back, so insurance policy. So it's not about saying you have to do it, but it is to say you should be open to enter a dialogue, because that will mean that there should be a dialogue about shared interests, and probably they can also find the different forms which could be not to lend the whole library, but I don't know which ones. The most important thing is that they should be open about it. So let's say that that's the whole concept. I would just like to add a couple of figures about it, which I'm a bit proud of, which are that our aim was to collect 100 books. I mean, that's for me, let's say, the basic critical mass. And once we started to spread the word, I mean, we collected not that many until, let's say, a bit more than a month ago. But after we started to spread the word, different people started to tell other people. So there was a great, for me, extremely important social dynamic that brought then a lot of people coming here, bringing their books and asking them to be included. So we, at the moment, we have around 140 books, so almost 50% more. And I mean, for me, yeah, it has been quite successful. I mean, this is also part of my academic research. Just wanted to mention that I'm associate professor at the Winchester School of Art in UK, and just beyond thanking all the organizations, also Winchester School of Art was keen to give a little budget to support the shipping. I mean, especially from Brazil, that was a problem, but also from Chile, for example. So that was supported. But I just wanted to say that it's part of my academic research, and I've investigated what they used to be called book mobiles. I've found a couple also in not specifically in Colombia, but in Latin America. So I'm glad to hear that there were more. And again, it's this idea to bring the books where they are needed. So instead of having this centralized concept of a library, having a library that is much more dynamic. It's kind of, it's more dynamically shaped. It's not anymore a monument, even if it's an extremely useful monument, but especially now in the age of digital, it can be more liquid and brought where it's needed, just temporary. It doesn't have to break into pieces. Well, designers at the moment have an extremely crucial role because, I mean, editorial design, because there's such an amount of different platforms and, I mean, even just us. If we count how many different websites and so editorial design we deal with every day, is incredibly more than we did just 5 years or 10 years ago to 20. I mean, it's unbelievably more. And the way the information is structured obviously channel us to lead us to learn something or just discard something else or look for a specific path. So it's an extremely, I just want to first say that it's an extremely strategic role at the moment. When it comes to technologies, I always thought, since I started a long time ago with the magazine, that it's not that much a question of which technology. It can be anything. It can be completely analog. It can be 3D body scanning, just to mention one of the latest, or it can be, I don't know, AI supported VR, whatever. It doesn't matter that much. What matters is the strategy behind. So it can even be a radio from the 19th century, but connected in a way, in a meaningful way with the content. So it's the most important thing is to focus on the content and how this content can be shaped through design to reach the audience in a meaningful way. And one strategic element for me is also that it shouldn't be anymore just one-way relationship. So it should not just a product that is consumed, but in a way there should be trajectories that would enable some kind of communication back. And here I'm not really talking about annotating and shared notes. That is something that can be useful, but for example, what when the nodes amount to 100,000? They are not useful anymore. So you see, that is a question of design. It's not just enabling a further future that necessarily enables a meaningful and useful process. I think that even more, there's a very liquid kind of situation where you have different media, mainly two, which is, I mean, in case of publications, you have the printed publications and all the kinds of digital publications. There's plenty of opportunities. I came up starting with a post-digital print book with this idea of a hybrid product, which is quite abstract, but mainly it says it's about, okay, we have editorial product, a publication of whatever kind. And on the other side, we have an extremely powerful technology, software and networks. They should be coupled, but not just in terms of the classic publishing model, so distribution and reaching as large as possible audience, but in terms of how to involve the readers in a meaningful process again. For me, the most meaningful process would be that the publication itself would be structured in a way that would enable actions and process through software networks, through the readers, and possibly would incorporate back what happens. So it should not be just about, let's say, a classic interaction as it has been formulated over the last 20 years, but it would be an enabling of processes far away that would involve different people, in a way creating a digital social space that would be reflected then in the publication itself, that would become a different content space. But again, it's quite abstract. I haven't been yet the opportunity to test some real prototypes, but again, the idea is to connect these three different crucial elements. That's just also because I'm working on this kind of taxonomy at the moment, to be honest. But more than a taxonomy, because again, then an extensive taxonomy would involve so many elements that the main risk is that it would be dispersive. At some point you will say, okay, then what I should do to be effective. I'm working on it the other way around. Taking specific, already realized products and trying to dissect their main elements. So making a kind of reverse engineered taxonomy. And I think that in that case, it would be more useful because we will start from something that has already been done. So not from a very abstract level, but from a quite at the moment, I'm dealing with, I think, 40 different cases, and trying to understand what kind of strategies has been applied would possibly be inspiring to apply a combination of them, or just improve some of them.